Good afternoon, everybody in leaving California land. This is David Barry along with Terry Gilliam. And I don't know, Terry, I always get so excited every time we do one. I feel like I'm sitting my chair's a little low. But today, the reason I'm excited is because we have Isaac Chavez from Boise, Idaho. So
Chavez.
Chavez.
It's okay.
It's
So
not
good.
Boise, it's Boise, and it's not Chavez, it's Chavez.
There you go. Terry.
Oh, no, the boss is already starting to correct me. Good afternoon, Mr. Gilliam. How are you today, sir?
Never better, David. It's we're hitting 70 degrees today here in Central Florida. A little bit
Wow.
cloudy, but that's okay. We'll and it's going to be 80 degrees about 2 or 3 days from now. So it's a rough January in Florida, I'll tell you that. Suffering in the 70s and 80s here.
And Isaac, that's something that we talk about every week when we go to different cities throughout the country. I guess we have to hit the weather a little bit.
Well, I'm always proud that Boise is a four seasons community. We literally have a distinct summer, winter, spring, and fall. But we did get hit with a pretty big dose of winter this last 2 weeks, just like a lot of places did. And it got down really cold. We had about a foot of snow on the ground, which is not normal. This is the most wet winter we've had since 2017. So it's not something that happens every year. But the good news is, the kids got 3 snow days. They had a blast not going to school. And it started melting. We're back in the 40s, Terry. We hit 45 degrees today. So the snow's melting and everything's back to normal. But generally, because this is the southwestern corner of Idaho, it's the arid desert climate. So we don't get the heavy winter and heavy snow that you get up north in the Coeur d'Alene area or on the eastern side of the state. So that stereotype and myth of Idaho being covered with snow applies to about 3/4 of Idaho, but we're in the 1/4 that doesn't generally.
Well, and on that note, Isaac, you can address this too. People hear desert, they say, "Oh my gosh, I'm leaving a place that doesn't have any water. I don't want to go to another desert place," but it's not the case in Boise because you guys have a ton of water. Why don't you address that real quick too?
Yeah, when I mention like the arid desert climate, I imagine people can understand like an Albuquerque, New Mexico, or almost a Reno, Nevada type climate. So it's totally dry, zero humidity. You're not going to sweat here. So we do not lack water. In fact, we have something called the Snake River uh, Basin, which is underneath us. And there's about, I might misspeak here, but it's something ridiculous like 2 or 3 trillion gallons of purple pipe water underneath us. So because of that, we don't lack water. So that's why this picture behind me, that's stereotypical of all the houses in Idaho, in Boise especially. There is no problem with watering your grass. There are no restrictions. In fact, most of the landscaping water is usually basically free or included in your HOA dues. There are no extra charges. It's not billed to the city or the municipality. It literally is like $50 a year and you can water as much as you want and no problems. We get our electricity from hydropower. So we have the cheapest electricity rates in the country as well. So we don't have any of those issues.
So, Terry, before we dive into Boise, I'm going to ask Isaac if I'm saying it right because Terry's always Boise, right?
Terry is right. It is actually pronounced with an S, not a Z. So, I mean, most people say Boise, but it's actually an S. So it's Boise.
Boise.
Yeah.
So, Terry,
Spell.
one of the things that I found really interesting is we have been getting a ton of posts about Boise and Idaho. One of these has 32,000 people that it had a reach and over 500 comments. And the comment was, I need people from Boise, Eagle Star area to give more straight. Is the area turning blue? And there have been some other posts about Idaho. And Terry, why do you think that there's so much activity with this state? And have you been there, Terry? Because I haven't.
Isaac gave me an amazing tour of Boise in April of 21. So
Yes.
gosh, it's almost 3 years ago. My
Yeah,
gosh,
yeah.
I can't believe that's gone by that fast. I fell in love with the town. April was a beautiful time of the year. As Isaac said, it's generally very nice weather anyway. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. He showed me all around. I fell in love with Boise. I moved to Florida, but for those who are considering it, absolutely. I'll let Isaac discuss the political side of it. Now, as a realtor, he doesn't take sides, but I'll let him address that because there are some blue areas.
Yeah.
But for the most part, Idaho is a very conservative state, and this is the capital is Boise. So I'll let Isaac handle that. But no, I absolutely love Boise.
It's not a coincidence that this Boise sign is red, you know, and that's a major landmark in downtown Boise. So yeah, obviously, we want anybody who wants to move to Idaho and escape California to come. But generally, most of the people that are leaving California, just like the rest of the states, tend to be conservative or Republican leaning. So Idaho is probably in the top 2 or 3 most conservative states in the country by far. I would put it up there with places like Alabama and states like that. Our politics is completely dominated by the Republican Party. The legislature is the mirror opposite of California. So it's a super majority Republican, veto proof. It has every state office holder is a Republican. There's not a single Democrat office holder at statewide, like Attorney General in those offices. But I will be honest with you, we don't consider Boise to be just Boise. We call it the Treasure Valley, and I think that's what we kind of call it in the Leaving California sites as well. So the Treasure Valley is actually what somebody would refer to as the Boise metropolitan area. It actually encompasses 9 cities and towns that all surround Boise if you look at a map. So when you take all that into consideration, it's called the Treasure Valley. Every single city and town of those 9, except Boise proper, are dominated with Republican government, Republican mayors, city councils, county treasurers. Boise is the only city that literally has a Democrat mayor. But here's the good news. Because the rest of everything else is red, that Boise mayor gets to bring the good things that can come out of that. So for example, when you're in Boise, we have electric bikes and electric scooters. They're really handy. You can ride them all over the Greenbelt and all over to the zoo. We have the coolest things that way. But in Idaho, the government, the state legislature controls almost everything. So cities don't have any power in Idaho. It's not a home rule state. I know that's kind of technical, but in Idaho, cities don't have as much power as they do in other states. So they can't even make their own sales taxes. The sales tax in Idaho is 6% everywhere. Local cities can't add on top of that, even though they want to, they can't. So anyway, we have the best of both worlds. We have all the things that you would expect from a conservative government, but then we have some of the goodies that a liberal mayor could bring. But keep in mind, Boise itself is surrounded by the other 8 conservative cities. So there's a political test for today.
Wow, that was probably the best. We've had a lot of realtors on here, Isaac, and I swear that was one of the best descriptions of what the political environment is. I have 2 little pieces of information that I want to cover before we really dive in and get to Boise. Isaac was one of the very first premier realtors, and I believe that Isaac actually helped with the inception of this. And in the beginning, I think he was number 2 or 3. He's been around for over 5 years. I've only been around for 2 years. And if you want to talk a little bit about that beginning, when Terry used to say, I hope I get up to 200 members, and now he's got over 300,000. Talk about the beginning. And then I want to talk about the client that we actually helped leave from the group, but wasn't even in California. So I want to talk about those things, dive in. So first, talk about those early days when I wasn't around and how you met Terry and what it was like back then.
Gosh, well, Terry and I have a mutual friend. His name is Matt Fagioli in Atlanta, Georgia. Really good friend of ours. And gosh, I think you didn't even have 100 members yet. I think you were just celebrating 100 members. And I got to meet Terry at a convention. Was it in New Orleans, Terry?
Yes, it was New Orleans.
New Orleans in 2018 in the fall. and we hit it off, and we have a similar background in many ways, and we both spent many years in the organized real estate world. He was more on the tech side, and I was on the association side. So we just had a lot in common, the way we raise our kids and the way we go to church and all these wonderful things. So we hit it off, and yeah, I joined him right away. And I have to show you something. Um, I actually had this sign made. Look at that. Leaving Cal. It's hard to see it with the thing, but I
I
made
see
it.
it.
It matches what's behind Terry. And back in those days, the first few people that we helped, they would sign it. So
Oh,
those are
that's
the
great.
first buyers, and they dated it like 2020, 2019. So yeah, those were the golden days when there was hardly anybody on the site, and we couldn't even imagine 5,000, 10,000, nonetheless 300,000. So
Terry, what do you have to add to that?
Well, that's right. I think it was October, if I'm not mistaken, of 2018. I started this group. I think it was like September 18th. So
yes, yeah.
it was only a month into the group, and as you said, I think I'd maybe had 100 people, but they were all my friends and anybody else that I could talk into joining the groups. And yeah, those were the trailblazing days, of course, having no idea that it would ever turn into anything that it has. But of course, I wasn't happy living in California. And I knew I wasn't the only person not happy with the way the state was being run and the cost of living and everything else. We all love the weather. We all love the beauty of California. But if you can't afford to, you know, pay your mortgage or rent or anything else, and you're living paycheck to paycheck, it's a miserable, and you sit in traffic every day, all day, both ways to work, and on the weekends too. In fact, I'll just share this real quick. I remember being in Los Angeles at 2 a.m. driving. I was driving from San Diego to, I think it was somewhere inland. I had to go through LA. And at 2 a.m, I was in traffic for hours. It was ridiculous. In fact, I even took a picture, welcome to LA, and we're just absolutely stopped for miles and miles. So I don't miss any of that stuff. And that's why I think so many people, and of course, as you said, Isaac, so many people wanted to go to a free state. And that's why so many people have moved to Boise and Idaho.
So
Definitely.
basically, every week we say the same things, and I know our listeners and our members probably get tired of me saying this, but I mean, it's so positive and it's a fact. Terry has done such an amazing job. And every single time I do an interview, I think this is like our 30th show that we've done or
Wow.
25th show. And we do this every Monday. Me and Terry made the commitment that we'll do this every Monday to help our members to figure out where they should go and to give them some tips about leaving. And, you know, it just comes through in every video how passionate, how genuine you are. I know that people don't get off a plane in Boise and you're saying, where do you want to buy? How much you want to spend? Let's talk about this city. Let's see if this is right for you. Let's see if your family will be happier here. So I just want to, I do it every week, but hats off to Terry for picking the best realtors throughout the country. And we have such an amazing group. So the second thing I said, and we try to keep it, be a little respectful on time, but we had a client that Isaac and I helped, and they weren't even in the group. She was an amazing lady. She used to be on the group, and can you just share that story real quick of how we help people, and they don't even have to be from California?
Yeah, that was Mike and Linda Arns, and that was this past summer. They originally were from California, but they had moved to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, a couple of years ago, and they they couldn't deal with the humidity, I guess, and a couple of other things, the bugs. That's what they kept saying is the bugs, the mosquitoes or whatever, the chiggers or whatever. So they decided they wanted to come back west, but they definitely had no interest in going back to California. They're diehard conservatives and business people. So they somehow, through the Leaving California groups, saw some of the information, and they requested my relocation guide, which we have a very, very awesome relocation guide that covers the entire area. And yeah, they ended up buying a new construction here, a Toll Brothers house, and they're tickled pink. They still keep in touch with them. They seem to be very happy here. They were a little bit surprised by this harsh winter the last few weeks, but everybody knows it's not normal. That's like a once every 5 to 10 years snow. So
That's a great story, and it's just really it's really refreshing to know that help people relocate, not just from California, but the majority. And our 300,000 members, they're mostly all from California. But that's a great story, and it was a
Yeah.
lot of fun helping them. They were really, really awesome people. Terry, I'm going to turn it back over to you. Let's dive into Boise, and let's fire away. Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, so when people hear Boise, as Isaac, as you said, you've got a lot of other towns around. I remember going to Cuna,
Yeah. Yeah.
and what's that? Enrique's? Is that the Mexican
Yes.
restaurant?
Yes. Yes.
Enrique's. I got to tell you, people complain. Oh, I moved to here, I moved there. The Mexican food sucks. Everything else. Enrique's was as good as anything I ever had in California. Tableside guacamole, made it
Yes.
tableside. It was spectacular. So can you just kind of touch upon the areas that you're seeing that people are moving to that more reflects of what they like in the things they like about California, but not the things they hate about California?
So, for generations, Boise was flyover territory, right? I mean, really, you would never stop here. You would just fly over on your way to the Seattle or Portland or California, and on the other side, Denver or even Salt Lake City underneath us. But finally, about 20, 25 years ago, what happened is we had a couple of really large corporations uh, get really big, especially Micron. So Micron is the biggest economic driver. They're the ones that make the most computer chips for all the laptops in the world. That was founded and based here in Boise. Of course, now they have factories all over the world in Taiwan. They just received a commitment to invest $20 billion to expand that, Terry. And they're actually working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, building these huge, huge, gigantic buildings out there. Supposed to bring another 10,000 jobs, which sounds kind of ridiculous, but so we had Micron, and then we had Chobani come in, and Cliff Bars, um, Vacasa, T-Mobile, Intuit. All these major corporations discovered the low cost of living, but with the awesome lifestyle with the Four Seasons, and they decided to set up shop here. And then that accelerated during the pandemic because what happened is suddenly all the California Silicon Valley companies like Facebook and Google, they all started to allow their employees to work from home. So a bunch of those guys and girls realized that they could buy a house here in Boise for nothing compared to what they were paying over there in San Francisco and work from home here and enjoy their Silicon Valley salaries. That has not really tapered off, even though a lot of companies have required their employees to go back to work. A lot of the Silicon Valley companies haven't actually done that, especially some of the IT and the engineer types. So we're still seeing that here. Even today, I had a client 3 days ago who called me. It was a referral from another client from a while ago who works for Facebook. Terry, in Cuna, the city you went to, where Enriquez is, they're about to open a $500 million Facebook warehouse, or what do you call it? Not a warehouse, but a data warehouse. So all full of servers. It's massive, and he's transferring for that. So we're seeing a lot of that. We have Amazon here now. They have one of their largest distribution centers in the country here. Since they opened 2 years ago in Nampa, we now can get delivery pretty much within 2 to 3 hours on most items. It's pretty cool. My daughter ordered something last week, and they literally delivered it. I'm not making this up. It was delivered at 1 a.m.
Wow.
on my doorstep at 1 a.m., not in the daytime. So we had that's part of the reason why we have all these people that are still coming here. So once this place was discovered, we had to catch up with the infrastructure. And so luckily, we had so much commercial development and business development that we've been able to keep our property taxes in check because the commercial activity is able to pay for a lot of the development. So that's why we have such beautiful amenities here. We have a 22-mile green belt, which is a walking, jogging, biking path that goes along the Boise River around the entire city, and you never have to cross traffic. It goes up and down through tunnels, special bridges. There's tons of wineries and beer places and restaurants along the trail, cafes, and you never have to cross traffic. So it's safe, it's well lit. It's like kind of like the Riverwalk in San Antonio, except not as commercialized as far as restaurants and hotels, but just an incredible amenity here.
Wow, so it's so amazing to have an encyclopedia of the town that you're thinking about leaving, and somebody that's not going to be salesy, somebody that's not going to just be trying to get a sale, but they're going to be creating a new family member, somebody that they're going to be involved in their life, and they're going to be involved in this transition. So, wow, you just educated me on a lot of stuff, and this is on my bucket list. I would love to come and check out the city, and I definitely will get up there eventually. I have a couple of students of mine that live in that area that I used to train in martial arts when I used to teach.
Yep.
So what you're saying, Isaac, is there's a ton, it sounds like just a ton of job opportunities. So that's something we always talk about. So I would imagine you're way up there on that.
We only have a 2% unemployment rate here. I mean, for the lack of a better word, everybody can work. Now, there are some differences between California and Idaho, and the biggest one is we don't have strong unions in Idaho, not at all. So we don't have a lot of the higher wages and salaries that some people are used to. So, for example, when we get nurses or firefighters and police officers that want to leave California and they start researching here, they find out pretty quickly that they're going to take a pretty decent pay cut.
Mhm.
But what we tell them though is on the opposite side though, you're not going to have five, six, seven, $800 electric bills. We have the cheapest electricity in the country. It's about $100 a month. Family of five working from home. So, you know, car registration's $100 a year. We don't have smog and emissions testing here. So if you take that into consideration, most of them still make the move here. So, you know, so jobs are plentiful. We also have, five, yeah, five major universities are here. So you not just Boise State, which of course is the most famous, but we have University of Idaho, College of Idaho, Idaho State. We have a law school. They're all 4-year colleges, and then we have about a dozen trade schools and community type colleges, junior colleges also. So there's plenty of opportunities for education. The trades are very big here because we are growing so fast. If you if you can be outside and help build houses, you'll make $100,000 a year. You can be
Yeah.
a roofer, a tiler, a sheetrocker, and make 100 grand with low taxes easily. And because the weather's so decent here, you really don't mind working outside. You know, it never gets excessively hot, it never gets excessively cold. So it's one of those places where you can work outside in those types of jobs year round. And then we have 3 hospital systems, which I like to brag about too. You know, we have 3 massive hospital systems that are the largest employers in the state. We have St. Luke's, which is a Protestant-based hospital system, and St. Alphonsus, which is a Catholic-based hospital system. And then we have the VA hospital, and our VA hospital was ranked #2 in the country last year for customer service and cleanliness and all that. So between all of that, there's tons of opportunity to work, but there's also you don't ever lack for any type of healthcare options if you're moving here, because we do get a lot of people that are baby boomers or older that want to leave California and they're worried about leaving their healthcare and Kaiser Permanente and all that stuff. And so we try to let them know that we have adequate facilities for them.
Well, you know what, Isaac? One of the segues that we get into education, and you really covered the top levels of education, college level educations, is typically on our segue to that point. I'm blown away at how many people that are in our groups, in the Leaving California groups, that they say, we just can't raise, I can't see us raising our kids in California. I just don't want to do that to my children. So obviously there's a lot of families and there's a lot of people that take their children. I mean, I put my kid first, and I know you guys probably both do. I could see your kids behind you, and I know how close Terry is. He just was in a wedding with his son recently, and he's very heavily involved. So children are so important. But I was blown away at how many people have said, we just can't raise our children here in California. We just don't want to do that to them. So let's talk a little bit about children education and the school districts, and also maybe talk about the communities that you serve a little bit more. That'd be awesome. Thank you, Isaac.
Well, as you see, my family, I have 3 children, 12, 14, and 16. So they've pretty much been raised here. This is probably the safest place you can imagine. I mean, part of the attraction to Boise is it's super clean, super safe. There is no homelessness, zero. There's no tents. There's none of that stuff. There's no graffiti. We have the lowest meth rate in the country. We don't really have an issue with drugs. Most people go to some kind of church here. Not everybody, but most people, are either Christians or Catholics or Latter-day Saints. And I think that plays into that. So everybody is really respectful of each other's space. But the safety is a big one. I don't have a problem with my kids riding their bikes anywhere. My wife can be showing houses, or she's a realtor as well. She can be driving around. I don't live in fear for my family's safety. Idaho's also what's called a constitutional carry state. So you just go with the assumption that every single person is packing a handgun or of some type, and that kind of keeps everybody, minding their own business when it comes to that. And I know that that's a big feature of why a lot of people choose to move to Idaho is because of that. So the schools are incredible here. We don't have probably the highest ranked public school system in the country, because for many reasons. One of that is that we don't tax our residents the kind of tax money that you see in California. So the public dollar that's invested into public schools is sufficient. It's not excessive like California and other states. But it also probably means that our public schools are not the highest ranked. But to make up for that, we have probably the most vibrant community of private charter schools, magnet schools, STEM schools, religious schools that you can see in a city this size. There's something for everybody. The charter schools are basically free as well, but they cover everything under the gamut from magnet schools. We have an international school here. My daughter attends a classical Christian private school where they learn Latin and they have to do cursive for everything. And so my two sons recently transferred to a military school. But the thing I like to talk about the most is homeschooling, because I know that's one of the biggest things in our groups. People always want to know, can we homeschool? Because states like California are so anti-homeschool because of the strong teachers unions. Well, Idaho is probably the most, in a good way, progressive state in the country when it comes to homeschooling. They actually have a system here that if you homeschool your kids, you can get $800 a semester per child from the government to help buy school supplies for your kids. It's that simple. You just have to keep up on the website what your kids are learning, and they also provide all kinds of field trips and activities. So I mean, the state government actually supports homeschooling financially. So it's a pretty cool thing here. So all of that is available. There's Waldorf schools, there's Montessori schools, there's everything you can imagine. There's Catholic schools, Christian schools. And then the public school system, like I said, it's okay. I mean, we're not going to say they're not okay. There's plenty of good schools, and they all provide buses, and most of them lunch is really cheap, if not free. It's like $1 or something. So there's plenty of schools for everybody. But most importantly, the schools are safe. This is a very safe community. People send their kids off to school happily. You don't have to walk through what do you call those? The security checkpoints to go
Metal
into
detectors.
schools. Yeah, none of that stuff here. It's pretty nice. It's a big relief as a parent, that I don't go through my day really worrying about my children's safety. And I know that might seem extreme, but there are lots of places in this country right now where parents do worry about that. And I'm so blessed that I don't have to.
Isaac, you have really exceeded my expectations. I knew this was going to be an amazing podcast, and you go above and beyond when you explain, and I really appreciate that. And for people that are listening and considering our area, this is going to be great information for them. Terry did ask you a little bit about real estate. I want to go back into that, and then I know Terry's probably got a couple questions about your city and your area. My question on real estate is I want to get a little bit more specific on price points and
Sure.
communities and what that looks like, and then the days on market and what your inventory looks like there, and then I'll let Terry ask the next one.
So the Treasure Valley is really made up of 3 counties. So Boise itself is named Ada County, ADA. It's like ADA, Ada County, and that covers Boise, Meridian, Eagle, which are in Cuna, which are the kind of the big cities. And then we have Canyon County, which is adjacent to us, and that counts places like Nampa, Caldwell, Middleton. So all of that together pretty much makes up the Treasure Valley. Real quickly before I give you stats, though, I wanted to brag again about the area. So Nampa, which is about 100,000 people, and it's next door to Boise. Nampa has been voted the #1 best managed city in America, like 5 of the last 6 years running by, I don't know, Money Magazine or one of those magazines. That's an incredible feat. And Boise itself comes in #3 in that same ranking. So out of the top three, these both cities are well managed. And one of them has a liberal mayor and the other one has an extremely conservative mayor. But what that tells you, though, is that we don't have corruption here. The cities are well managed. They hire really good city managers and employees and department heads. We don't have corruption trials. We don't have mayors getting arrested and people like that. And that really keeps everything flowing. And it also means that the public has faith and trust in their local government, which is a rare thing in America these days. Here we feel pretty good. So anyway, just I wanted to say that. But the one negative about Boise is that we grew so fast that, gosh, when I first met Terry 5 years ago, our median price was probably around 280,000, maybe $300,000. Well, about a year ago, right before the interest rates took off, we were all the way up to $600,000, so more than doubled.
Mm.
Good news is it's come back down a little bit. So as of like literally the end of December, the median price for a home in the Ada County area, which is basically Boise Meridian, is about 515,000. So it's about 100,000 less than at the peak. And that's going to get you a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 3-car garage, 2,000, maybe 2,300 square foot house on a fifth of an acre. So that sounds pretty good to most people leaving California, I think. But it's still more than other places in the country. But once again, our property taxes are relatively low. Everybody in Idaho gets $125,000 discount on their tax assessment for their owner-occupied property. That's a huge, huge incentive. It's only for the house you live in. So if your house is assessed at 400,000, you're only getting taxed on 275,000, and it's about 0.8%. So it's relatively affordable. It's not highly taxed. There are no transfer taxes. There's hardly any type of impact fees. There's none of that garbage that you see in places like California and Washington State. So we sell a lot of houses here. My goodness, just in last year alone in Ada County, there was almost 10,000 houses sold, which is a lot. And even with that, we're still, sounds crazy, but we're still about 10,000 short of what we need to keep up with the demand.
Right.
The builders are building as fast as they can because Boise has a very conservative government. Idaho, they brag about having the least amount of regulations. Our governor actually had a big press conference a couple of years ago and says that he cut so much red tape, and the governor before him and the governor before him, that we have the least amount of state regulations in the country. So building is not hard to do here. They still have to have rules and stuff, but there's nothing holding it back. It's not like there's environmental courts and all that other stuff that you see in California. They just can't keep up. So if you're willing to work in the housing industry, you can make a very good living and your work is pretty much guaranteed. Outside of funeral homes, I think the building industry in Idaho is probably the most guarantee of future income.
And Isaac, for our Leaving California members, is there a difference that stands out in your mind for when you buy a property, as opposed if somebody's used to buying properties in California for 25 years and now they come to a different state? That's something that we like to remind our members is every time you buy or sell in a different state, it's going to be different because every state has different laws.
Yeah, well, my personal business, my wife and I, about 70% of our clients are coming from, California, Washington, Oregon, even some from Arizona. So we're totally comfortable and used to helping out-of-state clients. And so a lot of it is a little bit different. Sometimes, you have to do most of the shopping virtually. It's not always possible for the Californian to come here. So we do a lot of house hunting for them. We do a lot of FaceTiming from properties, a lot of virtual tours. We do a lot of negotiations on Zoom. We do encourage, though, most clients to fly in, at least for a weekend. During the biggest part of the snow, I was driving around a couple of clients last week. People come when they can come, and you show them around. The good news is we have a lot less red tape. So buying a house in Idaho, the document package, the offer documents is probably about 20 pages with all the disclosures.
Yeah.
In California, it's like 100. We don't have termites in Idaho, so there is no termite inspections, and it's not part of our vocabulary. We just do a normal home inspection. It's about $350. That's about it. There's nothing else. There's no other things that you have to worry about. Average house can close in 3 weeks here. If it's just a normal conventional or FHA loan, if it's a cash deal, you can close in 4 or 5 days.
Wow.
I had my fastest closing 2 weeks ago. It was 1.5 days.
Wow.
So there's not a lot of red tape. There's not a lot of hindrances. All the big banks are here, if that's what you prefer. All the major banks have branches here, but we also have a million local lenders, and it's a well built out infrastructure for real estate here. And we do well. It's a fun business. There's also a big rental market. So you don't have to be a realtor to do property management in Idaho. So it's a separate business model. But they're definitely building rental apartment buildings left and right as well.
So Terry, Isaac is just nailing it on every level. I'm so impressed. And if you're considering going to the Boise area, you definitely need and we'll get to his contact information, how you can call him, how you can email him. And I'm sure I probably missed a couple of important points. So Terry, please help me out. What else did we forget?
Yeah, Isaac, I know because of the growth that's happened over the last several years, people talk about traffic. Can you address that and what the state is doing to alleviate the traffic that's come with the growth?
I laugh the most when I see those posts because as a child, I grew up in outside of San Diego near La Jolla for about 5 or 6 years when I was a kid. And of course, it was very different back then, but I go to California all the time. I mean, I went to Disneyland last year. This is nothing. The traffic here is nothing compared to anything in California, unless you're in the outskirts. I mean, really, we have our interstate system that literally goes right through Boise, and the airport is right off of that. If Terry remembers, the airport is literally downtown, so you don't have to like drive an hour, 2 hours to get to the airport. This is one of those cities where you can literally drive to the airport. The parking garages are right next to the terminal, and you can fly out. You don't have to budget 2 to 3 hours. I literally show up 30 minutes before my flight. So our infrastructure is really well. The way we have the interstate system, it's I-85, and then we have some state highways, and it separates Boise and Meridian and Nampa. I would say even at the worst case scenario, if you literally were going from one end to the other at rush hour, the worst you would ever have during those times is maybe 30 minutes. That's
Wow.
it. But normal times, it takes 15, 20 minutes to get anywhere. And that's going from Eagle to Boise or Boise to Caldwell. The Treasure Valley is super accessible. They're actually building another extension of the highway as we speak. You'll be able to go from Emmett to the interstate, and that'll cut about 15 minutes off of that. So yeah, the traffic is nothing compare. There's only one road in the city that's getting congested, and that's Eagle Road. And that's the one that has the In-N-Out burger that just opened for the first time in Idaho. It opened about a month and a half ago, and it went from 8 hour waits, and now their wait time is about 2 hours. Still,
Wow.
it's a massive, and they're going to build 3 more. They just announced. It's so popular, but that's about it. So Eagle Road, Meridian, and Eagle are definitely getting full, but it's not enough that it overwhelms us. We're trying to catch up. We don't mind spending uh, tax dollars to do that, but it's just gonna be one of those things. And they're doing their best to manage growth. That's why you're seeing cities like Kuna, Caldwell, the outskirts of the Treasure Valley, just like in Las Vegas, David, with Henderson and all those outlying communities. It's
Yeah.
the same thing that's happening here.
Yeah.
And just think of where you're at with that picture behind you of being Boise. We have all these other wonderful areas that are outside of downtown Vegas, right? That
Yeah.
most people live in. That's the same as us. Most people live in Meridian and Nampa and Kuna. They don't live in Boise proper. So.
So if you could share some of the, maybe just the top five, I'm sure you have a ton of fun and exciting things for people to go and see and activities. If you could share some of that with people that have maybe never been there or don't know much about the area.
Well, this is the outdoor plethora, I mean, outdoor heaven here. Because of our seasonal weather, people are all outdoors here. So we have, hundreds and hundreds of miles of hiking trails. We have the hills, mountain biking galore. In the wintertime, we have skiing, which is just 30 minutes away. We have night skiing, 30 minutes away from downtown Boise. You can go skiing at night. And then, less than 2 hours, you're in Sun Valley, which is world famous, or McCall. So those are serious ski areas, less than 2 hour drives. So outdoors, we have tons of water bodies. We have some really large lakes. We have the Snake River, the Boise River, the Salmon River. All of that allows water rafting, kayaking, paddleboarding, swimming. We have a very vibrant wine region here, which people don't expect, but it makes sense because of our climate. So we actually have a really cool, along the Snake River near Caldwell, there's about 8 or 10 wineries. They all have these wonderful tasting facilities there, and you can take a tour. You can actually do it yourself, or we have tour buses that take people through there. Fishing, boating. And then on the other side, if you're not into the outdoors, but you want to do normal things, we have, all of the massive movie theaters, 30 screens. We have Top Golf now. We have awesome bowling alleys that are super fancy. We have everything. We have our own opera. We have several ballet companies. We have our own Philharmonic Orchestra. We have an outdoor Shakespeare festival every summer. We have world concerts that come here. I've seen everybody here from back in our days. I saw Journey. I've seen Foo Fighters. Taylor Swift comes here. I mean, everybody comes here now. And then, of course, we have sports. Boise State is big with football, basketball. We also have a semi-pro hockey team for people that want that. So we basically have something for everybody, tons of shopping, everything that you could want here is available. And once again, all of that is done in a safe, clean, graffiti-free, and panhandle-free environment. Literally, you don't see any.
How about smash and grabs?
Don't even know what that means, Terry. I don't even know what that means.
What is your metro population?
So Boise itself, by itself, just Boise is about 240,000. But when we take that whole Treasure Valley that I talked about, the 9 cities, it's actually getting up there. It's close to about 800,000 now. And that, it's growing, but you don't feel it. And Terry was here. It doesn't feel like a big city. It still has that small town feel. It really doesn't.
Nice.
You don't feel like you're in Portland, Oregon, or you just don't feel that at all.
Hey, David, let me just ask another question here. So, Isaac, I know that the way you've touched upon it, you can pretty much have housing-wise anything you want, from rentals all the way, if you're far enough out, probably a very affordable housing. But I also know that people are attracted to Eagle. Can you just talk about Eagle for those who haven't heard of it? We do have some very high-end homeowners and wealthy people in the group, and so it may be appealing to them. If you can touch upon Eagle for a little bit, that'd be great.
So 30 years ago, Eagle was just in the outskirts, a bunch of old trailer parks and drug dens and just the scourge of the earth 30 years ago. And today, Eagle has been transformed into our Beverly Hills. It is that beautiful. There's tons of man-made water bodies, tons of golf courses. So it's our high-end community, and you can definitely buy a house. I can even tell you the median price for Eagle has dropped to 900,000 from a high of 1.2 million a year ago. And then you can buy houses all the way up to $6, $7, $8 million. But you're going to get a lot more for that than you would anywhere else. So an $8 million house here is like a 20-acre, 10,000 square foot house. I mean, it's massive. So Eagle has all the latest things. It's beautiful. There's more Range Rovers in Eagle than anywhere else in the country per capita, from my understanding. But it doesn't have that feel. Everybody can go to Eagle. There's great restaurants, great shopping. It doesn't feel snobby. There's definitely a lot of gated communities, but it still feels accessible. It does not feel like you're going to a different world, other than it's very well landscaped and the houses cost a lot. but it's
And a lot of golf courses too, right?
a lot of golf courses, and all the subdivisions have man-made water bodies. So you have all the ducks and foliage. It's really beautiful. If you never had been there, you would think that's how it was naturally, because it just seems like it's natural. But it was all created over the last generation.
Well, in order to be respectful of time, I mean, time is just flying
I know,
by.
yeah.
I'm so, and I could just see that every time you have a new client, whether they're buying a 300,000 or a $5 million house, I know that you have this passion and you really want to express what your city has to offer. I was curious if you had any, it sounds like you do a ton of relocations. Do you have any stories that you could share? And maybe you could, when we do these podcasts, we know that we're talking to people that are on the fence. And this is probably the biggest life decision that they may make in their lifetime. Like I've been in California for 30 years. I just can't take it anymore. And they're on the fence. So if you have a story that you could share about one of your clients, and if you could speak directly to somebody that was watching this podcast, maybe they don't want to come to Boise, but they want to leave.
Yeah.
What advice would you give them? And please share with us.
The one of the biggest benefits of people that are worried about leaving California, it's usually they're not worried about leaving California itself. It's that they don't want to leave their family or their close friends. That's usually what I've seen. So it's not that they don't care. Nobody cares about really the politics or the government there. So they're happy to do that. Well, our big advantage is we're really close. You're not going all the way to Florida. You can get to Boise relatively cheaply and easily from California. It's a quick flight on Southwest Airlines from any of the Los Angeles, San Diego, or San Francisco airports. So it's not expensive to visit your relatives or go back and forth. It's not even a bad drive. You can drive it in one day, less than a day. So that's one of the things we encourage people to say is like, look, come here, check it out. And more often than not, families end up following them. So I guess one of the stories I have is I had a person who moved here. It was actually before I met Terry. So it was somebody when I first started here. They were just retired. They couldn't take it anymore. They moved here from San Diego. And now, 5 years later, there are two adult children, one of the wife's sisters, and then several nieces and nephews have all relocated here because over the last 5 years they would visit and they all fell in love with the area. And then they realized that they don't have to leave all the things they loved other than the ocean. There's really nothing else that you would get in California that you can't do here in the Boise area. So I talk about my family all the time when I talk to clients. I'm a family man. I raise children here. That helps a lot when families are looking to move here. I'm able to speak to their experience. I'm able to act as a resource. My wife's also a piano instructor. People that want to have kids in music. We have tons of karate and jiu-jitsu academies here, people that want martial arts. So I can speak to all that because I've gone through with my own children. We're a very pet-friendly community, super dog-friendly, tons of dog parks everywhere. Everybody has dogs. We have it's really welcomed here. And so I think all of that is what we give to the people that are leaving California when they contact us or look into Boise. We can talk about that. And then I'm also happy to share my electric bills and my utility bills with my clients. I send it to them and they can't believe it. What do you mean you only paid $35 for natural gas? How is that possible? How can you not have how can your electric bill be $100 when you have a family of five? So those types of things are what we can do to help people that are on the fence of leaving California realize that they can move here, save so much money that they can use that money to go back and forth every few months to visit their family or bring them here to visit. So it's not the end all be all. Now, I'm not going to speak to Florida and South Carolina and all the other states in the group. It's a little bit farther, but Boise definitely has that advantage of being just down the road, so to speak.
Terry, what else you got?
Well, I wanted to just to thank Isaac for being in these groups for so many years, 5 years now, 5 years plus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
But also let everybody know Isaac is a military veteran. He served our country. His kids are heading towards the military, so a patriot definitely. And I want him to know how much I appreciate his service to our country, but also service to our groups.
Thank you. And we are definitely a pro-veteran, pro-military state. There's a big Air Force base 30 minutes from Boise at Mountain Home. So we have that. We also have a Air Force contingent National Guard at the airport. So definitely if you're a veteran, we have tons of benefits here. you get a discount almost anywhere you go. It's on your driver's license. It says you're a veteran, and basically everybody loves to take care of vets here. I mentioned earlier we have one of the best VA hospitals in the country. It's well built out, and I personally do a lot of VA loans for my clients, a lot of veterans that are buying here. So we have lots of experience with that. And yes, my two sons are currently in military school. One's going to West Point, hopefully, and the other one wants to be a Navy SEAL. So they decided to invest their high school years at a boarding school instead of just hanging out and partying at a regular school.
So one of the things I say, Isaac, on every one of our podcasts is that you need to find a realtor that knows what he's doing. You need to find a realtor that's passionate about what he does. You know that you're going to become family. I mean, it's going to be like family. And we've been talking about this the last couple of weeks. It's really interesting that there's 1.5 million realtors in our country. I mean, let's face it, we have a lot of realtors.
Yeah.
But we don't have a lot. I don't know if you know this. I'm sure you probably do, Isaac. He's a numbers guy, obviously. But less than 1% specialize in relocations.
Yeah.
And so when you say, "Well, I've got a realtor that's my cousin's brother's sister," or whatever, that didn't even come out right. Sorry, Terry. I have a realtor that is my cousin's mom's friend. They don't specialize in this like Isaac does. So it's so important that you find the right person. And honestly, to get a little serious here, it can cost you tens of thousands of dollars if you don't have the right person. So Isaac, me and Terry are always going to support you. We're always going to refer you, and we're always going to say, if you're going to Boise, you need to call Isaac. And if somebody was going to call you, can you please give your phone number and your email so that people can get a hold of you?
Sure. The best way is to go to our website. It's Reside 208. 208 is the only area code in Idaho. That's how small the state is. There's just one area code. So reside208.net. And then my phone number is 208-423-8754. But more importantly, you can find me in your file. If you go to the Leaving California groups on the preferred realtor tab or under files, I'm definitely there. And one of the things I wanted to appreciate Terry about too is that since that beginning of this group, he now has preferred lenders and preferred moving companies. So the resources that are in these groups are huge. If we can just, get the 300,000 people to realize those resources are all there. Some of them don't have a clue what is on these pages. It's amazing. Terry's done all the work for you guys, speaking to the audience, as far as vetting these movers and lenders and realtors. So you don't have to lose money, like David said. You don't have to take a risk that you're going to be working with somebody who might not have your best interest at hand. And I personally can attest that Terry has let some of the realtors leave the groups over the years because they maybe didn't meet his standards. And so I'm really proud to be one of those. And thank you. And I'm really glad that David came along on this group and this journey. He's helped us up the game a lot in the last year. So thanks, David, for joining.
Absolutely.
You're welcome. And on that note, we do have a YouTube channel as well. And on our YouTube channel, you can go back, and now we have 25 or 30 different cities, and you can start going in and you can get very specific and see exactly what that city has to offer. And does it make sense to spend $300 or $400 on an airline ticket to go check out that city? So we're just going to continue to give. We just want to give value, and we're going to just continue to give more value every week after week. And in closing, Terry, do you have anything else?
No, this has been great, Isaac. I'm looking forward to coming back to Boise again.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to going back to Enrique's again and getting tableside guacamole at that awesome Mexican restaurant. And I would encourage anyone to reach out to you. You've got an amazing relocation guide. People should reach out to you for that alone if they're considering the Boise area. It's an amazing resource. And of course, you are too. So thanks, David. Thanks, Isaac. It's been
Thanks for having me today, guys. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go out now and go shovel the last of the snow of the driveway.
Have fun with that.
Yeah, it was not, my sons aren't here anymore, so they usually do all that for me. So, but anyway, thanks, David. I appreciate you scheduling me today, and maybe I'll come back in the summer and we'll do it again.
All right. Thank you, buddy. Everybody have a great day. Bye-bye.